Oh, guys, well, it's so nice to see all you folks out here and see you having a good time. Now, that's what we want to do. You know, we need more laughs in this old world because there's enough sad stuff that to kind of drag us down. So if you can laugh a little bit, have at it. I tell you, I found out one thing: you can't laugh and worry at the same time. And that's all right with me. I think it's marvelous. Now, I think you'll all make a better audience for me here if you'll all know each other real good. And I've got to get you acquainted fast because it's important. I don't have much time. So here's the way I get you all acquainted quick. When I count 3, change clothes with the person next to you. Huh? What do you mean it won't fit? You're right. Oh, guys. Boy, we have a lot of fun here, don't we? Guys, I tell you. Well, we're having a lot more fun. Of course, the presidents back here said that we should have a lot more fun than we did last year. They said they had a belly dancer they hired to come in and do this. I couldn't believe that. And they said he wasn't any good. But, well, you know, folks, of course, coming down here, I have to drive and all that stuff. Your traffic's not near as bad as we have it up there in Chicago. I have to live up there part-time. I don't get down to the farm in Indiana near as much as I'd like to. And, of course, our big problem up there is traffic. Oh, we have all kinds of traffic in that city of Chicago. And one of the biggest menaces of all times of that traffic is those little bitty compact cars. Oh, they're a mess. I tried to cross the street in Chicago there one day, and one of them little compact cars come around the corner and knocked me down. And while I was laying there, another one run up my pants leg. Good thing he made a left turn. You know, speaking of cars, I don't know whether you heard about this or not, but there was a guy who had a sports car, and he was driving down the road. Oh, it was a souped-up sports car. It was a dandy. He was so proud of it, and he was driving down the road, and he looked on up ahead along the side of the road, and there stood a hippie with a bicycle. Now, I don't mean this was just a long-haired boy. This was a real dyed-in-the-wool hippie. You could tell because he was covered with that topsoil, you know. Yeah, and you could tell the way he looked. He looked like a Jack, and he walked like a Jill. And he smelled like a John. But anyhow, this guy thought it would be a good idea if he'd get this hippie in there with him. And so he stopped his sports car and he said, would you just, I'm going the same direction you are, put your bicycle in the trunk of my car. And he said, I'll haul you, and you just go as far as you can go there, and then you can get out and I'll go on. Well, the hippie said, that's fine. So they tried to get the bicycle in the trunk of the car, and it wouldn't go. The bicycle's too big. Wouldn't go inside, wouldn't go on top. Well, the guy that owned the sports car said, now, don't worry about it. He said, what you do, I've got a rope in the trunk of my car. Said, you tie it onto your bicycle and then tie it onto the back bumper of my car. And he said, I'll tow you down the road. Well, the hippie said, that's grand. So they did that. Now, the guy says, don't worry. He says, if I get going too fast, he said, you got a horn on that bicycle, haven't you? The hippie said, yeah. He said, that's what you do? He said, you just honk the horn on that, and he said, I'll slow down. Well, they did that, so they got on there, and they got going down the road about 55, 60 miles an hour. That hippie was on that bicycle in the back, you know, and his hair blowing back there about 3 feet, and he was driving down there and going so good that, by golly, the guy in the sports car forgot that the hippie was back there. Well, about that time, there was a guy in a Cadillac pulled up along the side of this sports car, and he looked over at the guy in the sports car, raised his eyebrows a couple times, and gunned his engine. Well, that's all the man in the sports car needed. He floored it right there. And down the road they went, 75, 80 miles an hour, just racing, 80, 85, 90, got up to 100 miles an hour, just burning up that road. And about that time, they passed a radar car sitting along the side of the road, and the officer in that radar car picked up that microphone to radio his buddy about 1.5 miles down the road. And he said, Charlie, he said, be on the lookout for a Cadillac and a sports car. He said, they're racing down the road. Charlie, he said, they got to be going over 100 miles an hour. And he said, Charlie, you ain't ever going to believe this. But he said, right back of him, there's a hippie on a bicycle honking his horn trying to get around. I said we go in cars a lot. I also do an awful lot of flying, folks. I have to get around. This week so far, I've been in Texas, I've been in Oklahoma, and I've been in Tennessee, and I've been in Alabama, back to Illinois, and then out here tonight. That's just 1 week. So, you know, I've had to do just a little bit of flying in that time. I was coming back from Pennsylvania the other day on just a little two-motored plane. It was just a little plane, just me and one other guy on there. I've never seen a guy more nervous about flying than this fellow was. Oh, was he nervous? In fact, he used 4 of those paper sacks. And that's 4 we took off. After that, it got worse. We were flying along there talking about pleasant things, and I noticed one thing. When this guy got excited, he'd start to stutter. He was sitting on one side of the plane, I was on the other. Pretty soon he started to stutter. He said, Stubby. He said the right motor just fell off. Well, me being a quick thinker, I said, move to the left side. He moved over to that left side, and that pilot got that thing squared up. We started going again, and pretty soon he started again. He said, Stubby. He said the left motor just fell off. Well, I said, boy, we got to do something. We had 2 and we lost 2. I said, now what you do, you put this parachute on and jump out this door and count 10 and pull that ripcord. I said, in fact, follow me. I put mine on. I jumped out that door, counted 10, pulled the ripcord, floating down to the ground just beautifully. I got about 500 feet from the ground, and I looked up, and here come this guy. Just like a bomb, he passed me. And as he went by me, I heard him say, "3." Now, like I told you, I grew up on a farm in Indiana there, right smack dab in the center of that old state. And, of course, I grew up during hard times, what we call them. And I see some of you boys out here that's about my age, you know, got a few rings around your tree trunk. Gollies, you know, you've been through those old hard times back there, and we didn't have any money. I remember that. The buildings needed painting. The roof was falling off, and then the Depression hit. Boy, it was rough, I tell you. But my mother, she's a wonderful woman, and she had different little ways that she'd save money. I remember one way she had of saving money. She used to put my brother and I in the same diaper. Now, you think that wasn't a thrill on a cold morning. Oh, I tell you. But I remember one year, it was we just didn't have any money. Winter was coming on, and we had one mule there. And my dad said, Tom, he said, you go down and ask the neighbor what he'd charge to board that mule for the winter. Said, we just don't have no feed, hardly left. So I did. I went down to the neighbor and I said, Charlie, Dad wants to know how much you charge to board our mule for the winter. Well, Charlie said, I'll charge him about $3.75 a month. Well, I went back and I told Dad, I said, Charlie said he'd do that and board that mule for $3.75 a month. Well, Dad said, that's too much. You go back and tell him we can't afford to pay nothing like that. So I went back and I told him, I said, Charlie, Dad said he just wouldn't pay that, and would you cut it down a little bit? Well, Charlie said, yeah. He said, I could. He said, you go back and tell your dad I'll board that mule for $1.50 a month. Well, I did. I went back and told Dad, I said, say, Charlie said he'd board that mule for $1.50 a month. Well, Dad said, that's a lot better now. I said, that's not too bad. Said, ask him who gets the manure. Well, I went back and I said, Charlie, Dad wants to know, you board that mule for $1.50 a month, who gets the manure? Well, Charlie looked at me and he said, you go back and tell your dad that if I board that mule for $1.50 a month, there ain't going to be no manure. Of course, you guys remember how it was on the farm, you know. We didn't have any money. I wanted a little job that I could get some cash. We always had plenty to eat, but no cash money, as we call it. So I got me a job at a little restaurant we had there, and I didn't know nothing about the restaurant business, but I got me a job as a counterman there, and it was my job to take the order from the folks, you know, as they come in, and then relay it to the cook in the kitchen. Well, the first day there I stood with my pad and pencil, nervous, just a farm boy. I didn't know nothing what I was doing. And the first guy to come in was some smart guy from Chicago. Come in there all dressed up in a fancy suit and a fedora hat, and he called me over. He said, "Hey, boy, come here." I went over there nervous, and I said, "Yes, sir." I said, "What can I get for you?" He said, "I'll tell you what I want." He said, "I'd like to have 2 hubcaps and 2 headlights." Well, now, I said, "Mister, you must think you're in the wrong place here. This is no used car lot. This is a restaurant." Now, he said, "Don't smart off to me, boy." He said, "You go back and tell that cook I want 2 hubcaps and 2 headlights. He'll know what I mean." So I did. I went back there and I said, "Hey, cook, there's some clown out there. I said, I think that he lacks a few bricks of having a full load. Because I said, he asked me for 2 hubcaps and 2 headlights. Well, the cook said, "Boy, he saw you was green on the job. He's pulling your leg." Why, he said, "I know what that is. That's restaurant talk. 2 hubcaps, why, that's 2 pancakes. And 2 headlights, that's 2 fried eggs." I said, "Boy, he did kid me, didn't he?" So I just went over and dipped up a great big bowl of bean soup. And I took it out and set it down in front of that guy. He said, "Hey, boy, what's this?" I said, "Mister, while you're waiting on your hubcaps and your headlights, why don't you gas up?" But I don't tell any dental jokes until tonight. I could tell you one about this bunch of guys that was all fishing up north in the stream, standing right out in the middle of the river, having a big time, a bunch of guys. And all of a sudden, one of the guys in the party sneezed, and his false teeth went right out in the river. And he started feeling around on the bottom, that moss down there and all that stuff, trying to find his teeth. And finally, the other guys took pity on him. They saw him going through that seaweed and stuff there. And finally, they all come over, and they kind of helped check. Well, they was all hunting around down there on the bottom of that river for this guy's teeth. Finally, one guy got to thinking, good heavens, we're going to spend all of our time looking for this guy's teeth and won't get to fish. So he thought he better do something. He turned his head the other way, and he took his own teeth out. And he held them down into the water, and he come up with them. He said, "Here, George, here's your teeth. I found them." Well, George took those teeth, and he put them in his mouth, and he wallered them around a little bit. Then he took them out, and he threw them way downstream. And he said, "The dang things never did fit anyway." Then I got a teenage boy at home. He's 16. And you know what worries me about him? He acts an awful lot like I did. Now, that's trouble, I'm going to tell you. But he can't figure out how I know what he's going to do all the time. He said, "How'd you know I was going to do that?" Well, I said, I was 16 one time, you remember. But kids today, aren't they different? My gollies, they have no money problems today, kids. You notice that? I went to him the other day. I said, "I can't believe that." I said, "Do you know what I was getting when I married your mother?" He said, "No, did you?" And then I've got a daughter. Oh, she's a cute thing, I tell you. And last summer she bought a bathing suit and brought it home. Now, I'm telling you, I never saw anything smaller than that. I took one look at that bathing suit, and I said, "Where did they have room to pin the price tag on that thing?" I was getting ready to grill her out about wearing a bathing suit like that. Then I got to thinking, that's bigger than the one I used to wear. You country boys remember that, don't you? Oh, I'll tell you, wasn't that fun? You get down there at that creek when those horse weeds get high and so forth. We used to go in there every night, a bunch of us boys. That was our bathtub. And I remember one night a bunch of us guys all in swimming, all of us dressed the same way. Barefoot up to our eyeballs. We was all in there swimming, having a big time. Look way down the creek bank. Here come one of the neighbor girls. Boy, you ought to seen that action. We all jumped in that creek and stood in water right up to here. And don't you know, that girl come right up on that creek bank and she stood there and laughed at us. She saw she had us. And she did. I said, "Go on, get out of here. I got to get home. I got chores to do." Well, she just stood there and laughed, boy. She stood there about 20 minutes, and those little mosquitoes started gathering, around my nose, mud turtles a hold of my toes. Finally, I had to do something. So I took my foot and felt around on the bottom of that creek down there, and I found an old wash tub down there. I just reached down and grabbed that wash tub, picked it up, and held it right up in front of me. Walked right up the creek bank of pasture. Boy, I was mad. I said, you know what I think? She said, yeah, you think there's a bottom in that tub. Well, we have school down there, too, when I grew up. Of course, it's nothing like these schools that they have today. Aren't these something, these schools? Just beautiful. Phew. I remember the school we had was just a big, long, narrow building with high ceilings. We had to get teachers to fit the rooms. I remember one teacher we had was 6'4" and weighed 80 pounds. She was just straight. If it wasn't for her Adam's apple, she wouldn't have had no shape at all. That's the thinnest woman I ever saw in my life. She had to wear suspenders to hold her girdle up. And when she'd come to school in the wintertime with a fur coat on, boy, was that funny. She looked like a pipe cleaner. But she was a wonderful teacher. We used to learn lots of things off her. And we used to take teachers' stuff. I don't believe the kids do that anymore. You remember you used to take a teacher an apple or a sausage sandwich? Poor thing had to eat it, whether she wanted it or not. Well, as you might imagine, I was an unusual child. And one day I took the teacher a surprise package. It's a nice box done up with a pink ribbon. And I said, teacher, you've got to guess what's in this before I give it to you. Well, she knew my mother was a good cook. She said, Stubby, I'll bet it's cake. I said, no, it's not cake. She said, cookies. I said, no, it's not cookies. She noticed the package was leaking a little bit. So she run her finger down along there, licked it. She said, pickles. I said, no, puppy. After we lost that teacher, we got one that was just the other way. She was the large economy side. And it's kind of interesting how she got that way. She was a stern teacher, and whenever she wanted to punish you, if you'd done something wrong, she'd eat your lunch. And she got up to about 400 pounds, that woman. But boy, I'll tell you, she was stern. She didn't let you get away with anything. Golly sakes. I remember one day I held up my hand and I said, Teacher, I want to leave the room. She said, no. I said, you stick around and fill the ink wells. I don't know whether you heard, I got to tell you what. Gosh, this is about this guy. He was a big bully type fella. And he walked into a tavern, and he told the bartender, he said, listen, buddy, he said, I just won my black belt in karate and judo. And he said, I'm an expert at this manly art of defense. And he said, I'm just dying to use it on somebody. Well, the bartender said, there's a farmer down at the end of the bar. He sold his corn, and he's been in here about 4 days celebrating. And he said, go down and use it on him. Well, this big guy run over to the farmer, and he said, stand up. Well, the farmer stood up, and this guy gave him a chop. The farmer went right down on his knees. And finally, the farmer looked up and asked this guy, he said, what was that? Well, the guy said, that was karate from Korea. Well, the farmer said, I don't need any more of that. That's plenty of that. And he started to get up, and this guy gave him another big chop. And the guy went right flat down again. And the farmer laid there a long time. And finally, he looked up slowly, opened one eye, and he said, now, what was that? Well, the guy said, that was judo from Japan. Well, the farmer couldn't take any more. He crawled out of the tavern door. And the big bully went back over there strutting, kind of brushing his hands over to the bartender. About that time, the tavern door opened again, and in come the farmer. Slowly, he walked up to this guy. And around from behind, he came forth with a blow that just laid this guy right out on the linoleum. And the farmer looked at the bartender, and he said, now, when that clown comes to, tell him that was a jack handle from Sears. Yeah, boy. I wish I could have my wife here. They asked if I'd bring her along on some of these things. Well, actually, no, I don't get a chance to because she does have to stay home. And like I said, we've got the teenage boy there at home yet. And I certainly wish I could bring her here. You'd like to meet her. She's a country girl. I got her just down the road a little ways from our farm there in Indiana. And I'll never forget the day I went and asked her dad if I could marry her. I said, I'd like to marry your daughter. And she was standing right there. She said, well, I don't know whether I can stand to leave Mother. And he said, take her with you. The old man didn't monkey around, you know. Well, then, of course, we went on our honeymoon. And we went to a swanky hotel up in Michigan. Oh, it was swanky. Oh, I'm telling you, you had to have a tie on to get in the swimming pool. And we stayed there about 3 days and finally got ready to check out. I went out to the desk clerk and I said, how much do I owe you? Well, the desk clerk said, that'll be $50 a day, including your meals. Well, I said, we didn't have any meals. Well, he said, that's not my fault. They were there. I said, all right, I'm going to charge you $60 a day for kissing my wife. Why? He said, I didn't kiss your wife. Well, I said, she was there. I think one thing that happens with all wives, I don't care whether you're from Iowa or Ohio or Pennsylvania, you all hear burglars in the house at night. You guys got a woman like that? Huh? Oh, golly, that happens all the time in my place. The other night, right in the middle of the night again, my wife gave me that bony elbow in the rib. And she said, hey, Goofy. Yeah, she always called me Hey. She said, there's a burglar down in the kitchen. I said, now, you got to be kidding. She said, no. Said, he's down there. Now, you go on down there. Well, you know what you do, guys. You go. I got up and stumbled down there, half asleep like always, turned on that light. Sure enough, there was a guy there. I said, buddy, would you mind going upstairs and meeting my wife? She's been expecting you for 30 years. What? But she's a grandma now, you know. Oh, yes. And we do a lot of babysitting. Grandparents make wonderful babysitters for 2 reasons. You're handy and you're cheap. By golly, she was keeping a little kid the other day, a little boy. Just got him out of the bathtub and he was standing there soaking wet. And the phone rang. She said, you stay right there, honey. I'll be right back. Well, you know, when a woman goes to answer the phone, she's not about to be right back. She yacked on that telephone, boy, till I began to wish that Elmer's glue made lipstick. But by golly, of course, when she did get back, the kid wasn't there. She heard some noise out on the back porch. She hollered out there and said, hey, you running around out there without any pants on? Some guy said, no, lady, I'm reading the gas meter. I think one thing that bugs me about my wife worse than anything else is she's so neat. I've never seen a woman neater than she is. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. Well, she puts a newspaper under our cuckoo clock. And she starches everything. I got on the plane today and sat down and broke my shorts. And the other night, right in the middle of the night, now she must have thought I was going to get some hair oil on my pillowcase. But when I woke up, she was trying to get a plastic bag over my head. But she pulled one 2 weeks ago, men, that beat anything I ever saw in my life. Now, only a woman would do this, and especially my wife. She was out with the car doing some shopping. I was at home. And we got one of those snowstorms there in Chicago that blew in off of Lake Michigan. Oh, it was a dandy. And I got the phone call from her. She says, come and get me. I'm stuck in the snow. She told me where she was, and I went out there. When I got out there now, men, I want you to picture this. There stood that wife of mine. She had a bucket full of sand, and she was throwing sand under the front wheels. Front wheels. I said, woman, are you stupid or something? Put that sand under them back wheels. She said, boy, are you dumb? Them back wheels is turning all right. It's them front wheels that ain't doing nothing. So I don't know how we do it, but we do. We just kind of keep going, don't we, fellas? I've got it figured out this way, that whatever it is that makes me tick, she knows how to wind it. That's got to be it. But a lot of people want to know what I do here for a little hobby and so forth, and I think everybody has to have a hobby of some kind because, well, to do something like this, otherwise the guys in the white coat would come and get you. But I do have lots of hobbies. I like radio and so forth. Television, I can't say too much for it. I think it leaves a lot to be desired, especially this season's shows. I understand they're so bad that the kids are starting to do their homework again. That's got to tell you something. And I got a little sample the other night. I came home late, and it was one of those late-night talk shows on. I'm telling you, it's amazing some of the subjects they talk about on those late-night talk shows. I sat there a little while, and they had a panel discussion. They had two pediatricians, and they had a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and a farmer on their panel. And they were discussing the pressing problem as which made the better baby, the bottle-fed or the natural way. Oh, boy. They had some real discussions on that. And, of course, the pediatricians and the doctors, they all come forth and said, why, the bottle-fed baby is way the best. Makes it way the best baby. Said, otherwise your kid will get transmissible gastroenteritis or coccidiosis or something, you know. I mean, they had all these reasons and everything. Finally, they went on for a long time. The farmer hadn't said a word. And the moderator turned to him, and he said, you haven't said nothing on the subject. What do you think? Which makes a better baby, the bottle-fed or the natural way? Well, the farmer said, are you kidding? He said, the natural way. Well, the guy said, you can't just say that without a reason. Well, the farmer said, I'll give you 3 reasons. He said, in the first place, it's cleaner. He said, it's fresher. And he said, you know the cats ain't been in it.